Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Got some dollar news this week. I was a little bit surprised by this, but maybe I'm not. But I'm super curious to see what happens. We've covered 99 cents only, kind of epically collapsed, and they have a buyer, and it is Dollar Tree. It's a $1.25 tree. And Dollar Tree's planning on, opening a bunch of locations rebranded in 170 stores.
And
But
these
I've
stores are considerably bigger than Dollar Tree stores. So I don't think they addressed it in the release what the plan is.
And they haven't addressed it in any of the stories because I've been prowling through all of the news that I can about this because it's suspicious that Dollar Tree has been expanding on the idea of being a dollar-ish tree and doing the $3 and the $5, changing their price points, and then to go buy 170 stores that are already equipped with cold storage in the back room, with produce displays. That is one of the things that was holding Dollar General back from adding fresh produce to its stores, although I will note that more than 5,000 Dollar General stores have fresh produce, but it was a long and ongoing process because they had to add the coolers, they had to, add some of the infrastructure because they just didn't have it in those, super spare and barren boxes that they put up, the sheet metal barns that they're putting them in. They can spawn in really quick. But with Dollar Tree buying stores that already have that infrastructure, it makes me wonder. Anybody got any answers?
Well, they seem to be better shape than Family Dollar.
They do. At least they're not closing a bunch of stores. At least they're not the one that's the loser in the whole deal. But I mean, I've been looking at not only news stories, but also expanding the comments on social media posts, mostly Facebook, because I feel like people are looking for that kind of content on that platform. And a lot of the comments were saying, I hope that they have fresh produce at these stores because a lot of them were in areas that are, somewhat of a food desert. They have accessibility issues. So it'll be interesting to see if this could start Dollar Tree in their journey to adding more fresh food. I mean, we went there the other day it's summer, right? And that's where you go to buy like balloons and doodads and knickknacks for your kids to entertain themselves when they're at home, or at least that's where I go. And I know I was taking a particular look at their food, and definitely the refrigerated and frozen food section has expanded over what I can remember them having in the past. So people are looking for food and they're looking for deals on food. So it could be something.
You hate to read into too much without talking to someone, but it does say they plan to start opening the new stores as soon as fall of this year. So
Yeah.
that's really pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Considering they're buying all the fixtures and stuff like that, it certainly makes you think they will try to fill all that space.
Yeah, because it's not like they're gonna like be cutting off square footage of the stores unless they're just like, roping it off and putting a sheet up and say, don't go behind here. you know, there
Like
would
when
be
you cut a
some,
gym in half, you could do that.
eh, yeah, just put up one of those like rolling things that kind of, if you're like a ballroom where you just have
Right.
the wall spawn in. But that's not the only dollar news this week. Dollar General also had its earnings report, and from the articles I'm looking at here, they're still having some trouble with shrink, and then investors weren't happy because the need to have, I mean, the want to have kind of stuff isn't selling very well. People are transitioning over to grocery. Of course, for us, we're talking, everyone's got to eat. So it's all good news for food. But it could be bad news for Dollar General. But I will be scanning through to check to see what the store count is. They tend to update every quarterly report on how many stores have fresh produce. And like I mentioned, at last count, they had at least 5,000, and they had opened their 20,000th store. That's pretty crazy. They opened it in Texas, actually. And it was a Dollar General Market, the one that has fresh produce. So, the
Well,
world
you're in
all
Texas. How far could it be?
6 hours.
It's like a
Yeah,
third of the way across the state.
it's a down toward the valley. So that's not exactly somewhere that you just hop in your car and go to on a whim. I mean, if it was anywhere within like 3 hours of where I live, I might go check it out. But a 12-hour round trip is, yeah, not gonna do that. So maybe if I was going down to the beach for vacation, but no, I go to Florida beaches. I don't go to Texas beaches.
Understood.
You are not going to the beach, but you are planning a trip pretty soon. Where are you going? Unexpectedly in June.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I've been going to the Washington conference, which is now called, it used to be called the Public Policy Conference, pretty much my whole career. So over 25 years. It has always been in September since I've been going, early September, which on big election years is very exciting because there's a real buzz in the city. Although part of the problem with that is a lot of the senators and US reps and their staffs who you're trying to get a hold of are so distracted in September. Like I think there's very little listening going on during our lobbying sessions. So that's part of the reason why they moved it to June. So it will be June 10 through 12. So just 2 weeks away. Um, I did interview Rebecca Adcock, who's the VP of Government Relations at IFPA, and she gave me some insight into what's going to be different this year. Obviously, the move, it's better legislatively because they're not quite as distracted, the people who we're talking to. And it also fits better in the annual calendar of all the events that we have in the produce industry, particularly IFPA. That's when it's in September, it's less, a little over a month from the big shows. That did make it tough on them, and it makes it tough on attendees and members. Um, but they have lots of good sessions. They've invited Secretary of Agriculture Bill Sack, who typically does come to that. So I'm very hopeful that he'll address our audience. There's could be the last time we see him in that role because depending on who wins the presidential election, and even if Biden wins re-election, a lot of times cabinet members switch out over a second term. So it could be the end of us seeing him. But there's a specialty crop caucus that is led by 4 U.S. reps, 2 from each party, and all 4 of them are addressing us the Wednesday morning of the conference. And I think that will be really good. They're supposed to talk about really get into the specifics of what specialty crops is asking for and can expect to get in the Farm Bill, which is still under negotiation. It's possible the Senate will have something to talk about in a couple weeks. They haven't yet. The House did pass a version, but of course, those are controlled by opposite parties. So getting together on that, who knows if that'll happen this year or when that could happen. So everything's up in the air. I'm looking forward to being there. It's always a cool conference. And it seems like in September, it inevitably rains. So maybe it
Yeah.
won't be as bad. It is not fun walking from the hotel, which is close to the Capitol, in your suit and nice shoes, and all of a sudden it rains on you.
Yeah. Hopefully, you can get, although I will note that it's probably, is it tourist season in the capital, like in
Well,
June?
it's June, so yes, September tends to not be tourist season anywhere in the United States because that's when schools are back in session. So it probably will be more touristy, but there's no time in the schedule for most people to do any of that.
Right. Well, in other news, there's one thing that I wanted to point out in particular. I don't know how many people noticed this, but if you are paying attention to the CRISPR or genetically engineered market, Pairwise, the company that makes the leafy greens, did a licensing agreement with Bayer. And so, I mean, this could be a huge expansion for these greens. I've eaten the salad. It tastes good. According to what they're doing with the CRISPR technology, it's also got enhanced flavor and enhanced nutrition too, I believe. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, higher nutrition compared to lettuce. The leafy greens are a mixture of a lot of the funky greens that a lot of greenhouse folks are growing. And so it's like it's a less pungent version of some of these super intense greens, but it still has the intense nutrition of like fresh mustard greens. So I just thought that was really interesting to note that we're seeing a deal between a huge company like Bayer. But in my brain it says Bayer because I think of Bayern Munich. Because everything dials back to soccer somehow.
Well, then it's not even Munich.
I know, right?
München.
Mooching, but yeah, you know what? Nobody says mooching here. We do say buyer though.
Okay.
So Bayer, they said that they're focusing on gene edited produce. It made a substantial contribution to our open innovation approach. So I don't know, people who watch gene edited produce might take note of this to see that such a huge company is investing in technology like this.
Changing the flavor of really healthy greens that people aren't eating because they don't taste good is an awesome step. Because I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about, I mean, they didn't do it with gene editing, they did it through more traditional means, but that is what brought Brussels sprouts back to relevancy, is the version that we had when we were kids just tasted awful. And they've presented a much more palatable version of it now, and it's considerably better. And I think I don't know that it's necessarily the case with spinach, but spinach does seem much milder now than I remember when I was a kid. Could be that my taste buds have
You just killed off
off.
a bunch of your taste buds.
Man, everything breaks down after a certain while. There, I think I mean, I didn't see baby spinach when I was a kid, and now I see it, and it's much milder and much more enjoyable. So,
Well,
I
and
mean,
it's
it's the right. I love the direction it's going.
yeah, I definitely love that idea as well because as good for me as arugula is, I can't do an entire salad of it. It is just too much. So to find a way to get super nutrition into a more palatable, I will note that the spinach that I ate when I was a kid came straight out of the can, Popeye style. And to make that edible at all, you had to dump vinegar on it. I don't know if that was just my family, but anything is better than canned spinach. You can't even like make dip out of that. So,
No, it wasn't great. It's
no.
much better now.
Yeah, for sure. But on that note, we're gonna shut it down for this week. That's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up and eat your spinach.